I'm gonna have to hit the button too. Good morning, good afternoon, and welcome everybody to April 27th already, 2022 Terra event. Today we will be discussing Pope Francis's encyclical Laudato Si on care for our common home, and Kate will be facilitating much of our discussion today. But I just wanted to open us up and welcome you to this event that is for the Charter for Compassion, and Kate Trinka, who you will be hearing a lot from shortly, and myself are the co-leads for the environment sector of the Charter for Compassion. I'm also very, very happy to see Donna Mills here, who is a sector lead for the RISE sector. Is that correct, Donna? Yeah, great. And so I just wanted to go through a couple of quick announcements. I'm going to say them, and then once Kate starts talking, I'm going to take what's in the chat box and copy it so that you all who just joined can see the links and various things. So the first thing is we do have a Facebook page for the Charter for Compassion. I'm going to put that link in the chat box so you can see that. Also, I'm trying to read Kate's notes here. There is an event called Heal the Waters that is happening on May 1st at 5:01 local time, 5:01 p.m. local time, so wherever you live at 5:01 p.m. It is a water ceremony, healing the planet's waters ceremony. You can learn all about it in the link that I'm going to put in the chat. And I am going to be doing one here in Washington State, and Kate and some others will be doing some in her area. So please think about doing it. My understanding, I've never done one before. This is going to be my first year. I'm so excited. I love outdoor nature ritual. And my understanding is that folks can do what is meaningful to themselves. So choose your ceremony, however grand, however small, by yourself or with others. There don't seem to be any restrictions, which is great for someone like me. So I hope you all will join in that. Also, we do have a Heal the Waters Facebook page. I'll also put that link in the chat. And two more announcements. There is something, a huge initiative that's been going on at the Charter for Compassion that's called the Compassion Tree Project. And it's not only about planting 7.7 billion indigenous trees, each tree representing the population of humans on the planet, but it's also about regreening communities, fostering native plant growth, especially pollinator species, and also looking at plants that provide food and medicine to local residents. It's also about agroforestry, reforestation, and of course, protecting already existing stands and groves of trees. The link for that will also be in the chat box. I feel like one big advertisement right now. Finally, No Mow May is an amazing initiative. Appleton, Wisconsin, I understand, is the home, the birthplace of this fantastic venture, reducing the number of times you mow during a specific month. And I just want to be really clear that we're all coming from different places in this Zoom call, and whoever's listening to this later will know that wherever your place is on the planet, the idea is not the month of May. The idea is when the pollinators are doing their business, that's when we want to avoid mowing. So you might want to do a little project and study when the pollinators are just getting going for the season in your area, and that consider starting a No Mow May initiative. That is enough from me. I would love to turn it over to my very dear friend and collaborator at the Charter for Compassion and partner in crime on many levels, Kate Trinka.
Thanks, Jennifer. Oh my gosh, you're so sweet. Thanks everyone for being here, and for those of you who are joining us later, I hope that if you haven't already read the Laudato Si, that you'll pick this copy up. I was just talking with Dr. Bruce Rinker a little bit ahead of time here, and we all agree that this is a very, very, very important book / document / letter to the world. And so I would like to start off by reading a hymn of St. Francis of Assisi. And I just found this hymn, I'm speechless, so I'm just going to read it. Praised be you, my Lord, with all your creatures, especially Sir Brother Sun, who is the day and through whom you give us light. And he is beautiful. Sorry, I apologize. I was distracted by my new puppy who is dragging her dog bed around. So let me refocus here. Praise be you, my Lord, with all your creatures, especially Sir Brother Sun, who is the day and through whom you give us light. And he is beautiful and radiant with great splendor and bears a likeness of you most high. Praised be you, my Lord, through Sister Moon and the stars. In heaven you formed them clear and precious and beautiful. Praised be you, my Lord, through Brother Wind and through the air cloudy and serene, and every kind of weather, through whom you give sustenance to your creatures. Praised be you, my Lord, through Sister Water, who is very useful and humble and precious and chaste. Praised be you, my Lord, through Brother Fire, through whom you light the day, and he is beautiful and playful and robust and strong. So I'd just like to pause right now and just, if anyone has any comments about that, I would love to hear.
Well, I know I'm a little fixated on robust and playful and strong. I really like that combination of words.
I love the way that there's an interweaving of energy, essence, meaningfulness, words from multiple faith backgrounds in that. That's what I felt, I saw a circle of people holding hands of all the different faiths around the world. They're focused on this planet right here, the holiness, and remembering that, oh, the holiness of this planet is also the holiness of my own cells. And that's what I heard in that invitation.
Thank you. Anyone else before we move along? If you'd like to speak, I might have muted you so that only the speaker had their mic on. So if at the bottom of your screen, there's a little microphone. And if it has a red line through it, you're muted. So just hit that microphone and you can unmute yourself.
Francis was always asking the God to make him an instrument of his peace. And I love that combination of peace and nature and others.
Yes, thank you. Welcome, Charlie. Thanks for being here with us.
Glad to be here. I just left a meeting where we talked about the three principles of the universe. The first principle being one of unity, starting from a singularity, and then from that singularity, the second principle, diversity, and that we're all part of each of the diversities. And if we see the universe is fragmented, that every single fragment, as diverse as it may be, is connected and reflects the whole, reflects that singularity. So I think that poem kind of reminded me of what we were just talking about in terms of our very beginnings. And if we understand that better, then we can understand that each of us are unique in our own way, but we're also unified in a more cosmic way. So yeah, thank you for Francis's words.
Charlie, what was the third? What was the third component in you said unity and diversity?
The diversity is, well, the third one just escapes my mind at the moment, but it's essentially evolution, consciousness, our collective consciousness as we move towards a remembering of where we really came from, the singularity. Yeah. So that's the best I can come up with for the third one.
Francis said in his encyclical, the book of nature is one and indivisible. That's the integral ecology that he was writing about. Very powerful, new idea, right? But an old idea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The other thing I really, the other thing that I really hear in this is that there's an action component, an active aspect to this, right? It's not just here are these pretty words and it lives in some, spiritual realm over there, right? This is about doing, and I think that's central to the charter. Another advertisement for the charter, right? I think it's central to the charter for compassion, but it's also central to the lives of each one of us here. And I know this because I know something about each one of you, even Catherine, who I just met a few moments ago. Anyway. There's some things I might know about you, Catherine, we'll talk later, but I do think that is really important, that there's something we can do. And I think that reads powerfully throughout this document, throughout this tome, the Laudato Si.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, everyone. I'm just going to read the first two paragraphs, and then we can... and then just also a few other little sections. And then I'd like to talk about what you gather from those. But the first, I was trapped into this book from these first two paragraphs, and I just couldn't stop. Praise be to you, my Lord. In the words of this beautiful canticle, St. Francis of Assisi reminds us that our common home is like a sister with whom we share our life, and a beautiful mother who opens her arms to embrace us. Praise be to you, my Lord, through our sister Mother Earth, who sustains and governs us, and who produces various fruit with colored flowers and herbs. This sister now cries out to us because of the harm we have inflicted on her by our irresponsible use and abuse of the goods with which God has endowed her. We have come to see ourselves as her lords and masters, entitled to plunder her at will. The violence present in our hearts, wounded by sin, is also reflected in the symptoms of sickness evident in the soil, in the water, in the air, and in all forms of life. And it goes on. And then I just wanted to point out a couple of other things on the following page. In 1971, Pope Paul VI referred to the ecological concern as a tragic consequence of unchecked human activity.
Sorry.
No worries. Due to an ill-considered exploitation of nature, humanity runs the risk of destroying it and becoming in turn a victim of this degradation. And then Benedict the 16th says, the deterioration of nature is closely connected to the culture which shapes human coexistence. Pope Benedict asks us to recognize that the natural environment has been gravely damaged by our irresponsible behavior. And then Bartholomew, Patriarch Bartholomew, has spoken in particular of the need for each of us to repent of the ways we have harmed the planet, for inasmuch as we all generate small ecological damage, we are called to acknowledge our contribution, smaller or greater, to the disfigurement and destruction of creation. He has repeatedly stated this firmly and persuasively, challenging us to acknowledge our sins against creation. And he said, quote, for human beings to destroy the biological diversity of God's creation, for human beings to degrade the integrity of the earth by causing changes in its climate, by stripping the earth of its natural forests or destroying its wetlands, for human beings to contaminate the earth's water, its land, its air, and its life. These are sins. For to commit a crime against the natural world is a sin against ourselves and a sin against God. And there's so many, and we haven't even touched on St. Francis yet. So my question to you, or anything that you want to say about this, but my question that I kind of wanted to talk about, like, what's it like to hear from all these spiritual leaders and learn that the church has been speaking this message since 1971? Let's talk about that.
Kate, the quote that you just read, that I turned to the encyclical letter, and I found I highlighted and exclamation points, stars, and all of that, all over that quote. I just love it.
Thank you, Bruce.
These are sins. These are sins against God and creation.
Yes.
It's yeah, Bruce, I totally agree, and it's really, and I look at sin as separation,
Yes.
And so we're really separating ourselves from ourselves when we do the kinds of acts that we do in the world to our Mother Earth, I mean, from which we came. And so yeah, and you know, I look back and see what Jennifer was saying about doing. You know, what is it that we need to be about? And I think it's returning to our true selves, and that's the work that I think we're all in, is returning to ourselves and understanding who we really are. You know, as one, as diverse as we are, we're still one in our essence. So, thank you.
Thank you, Charlie.
There was, oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Donna.
I was going to say there was a call at the beginning of the year with the charter about what we were going to take on this year for projects. And there was a co-lead or a lead, one of the sectors that came in and just have to talk about the environment. We have got to, it's the one and only thing that's important right now. And I said, it's not the only one and important thing, because our internal environment, our mental health, our emotional health, our physical health, everything that's in our cells is the first call to helping the environment. Because if we don't find ourselves holy, we'll never find the planet holy. And if we don't find the planet holy, we will not take good care of her. And we have not taken good care of her because we haven't collectively found her holy in our home. It is the domination paradigm, right? It's the domination instead of partnership with it. And it goes back to in 1971. It's like, the thing is, we're at the end of an era. So we're at an end and a beginning at the same time. And we could not have come to this point yet until our consciousness raised up together collectively, like you said, Charlie. And so it's the collective of us coming together in all of our spiritual and religious ways to say, who am I? And remember, who am I? Because when I remember my own holiness, everything, my coffee cup, the water, the blanket, the massage table, my clients is holy. Every little thing is holy. And that's how I feel that we believe, or that we heal.
Thank you. Jennifer?
I'm going to chime into one response that came to me when I was listening to Charlie is, you know, it's that, so my professional work centers around this very thing, what I call the inner-outer landscape, and what's going on in here, whether it's our spiritual selves, our emotional selves, our anxiety, whatever it is in direct communication with and connected to the natural world. So it's not that we're disconnected, it's that we don't remember that we are inextricably interconnected, right? So that's something that you were reminding me of, Charlie. So thank you for that. And then Donna, what I was thinking when you said that is that it's that that sacred, that divine, that holy essence or spirit that I think you're referring to, that's everywhere right? And so how do we connect into that, and how do we, and I really think one of the ways to do that is through a sense of balance. And again, you know, practical hands-on things like some of the items that are in the chat, doing ritual out in the natural world, just however largely or smallly we can in every day, connect in a reverent way, connect in a mindful way, connect in a respectful way. To me, those are all kind of pointers toward that action. Sorry, I've got a total action bent, so I might say more things like that in the remaining time we have.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And, you know, it's no surprise that, you know, for me, it is about remembering, reconnecting in our minds, because that's the only place we've disconnected, really. We're connected. We are nature, and we just need to, as Jennifer pointed out, remember ourselves. And so I think that's, you know, that's my lifetime goal, is to, you know, try and get people to fall in love with the natural world. And I think when we are in love with something, we protect it, we nurture it, we want it to thrive and grow and prosper. And so, and I think more and more people are recognizing this, but we still have a lot of work to do. So, anyone else want to say anything about that before we move along? Okay, thank you so much. So I wanted to move on to the man, Saint Francis of Assisi, and I'm just going to move on to pages 12 and 13 and read a little bit from the Laudato Si. Francis helps us see that an integral ecology calls for openness to categories which transcend the language of mathematics and biology, and take us to the heart of what it is to be human. Just as happens when we fall in love with someone, whenever he would gaze at the sun, the moon, or the smallest of animals, he burst into song, drawing all other creatures into his praise. He communed with all creation, even preaching to the flowers, inviting them to praise the Lord, just as if they were endowed with reason. If we approach nature and the environment without this openness to awe and wonder, if we no longer speak the language of fraternity and beauty in our relationship with the world, our attitude will be that of masters, consumers, ruthless exploiters, unable to set limits on their immediate needs. St. Francis invites us to see nature as a magnificent book in which God speaks to us and grants us a glimpse of his infinite beauty and goodness. So my question to you is, how has nature been a magnificent book in which God speaks to you?
I will respond immediately to that, Kate. In our backyard, I have cultivated over the last 14 years since we moved here, some gardens in the back. And my hope was to attract butterflies, because I'm a fanatic about butterflies, the chrysalis and the transformation that takes place and all of that. But what's happened is that we have really become a bird sanctuary. And since you were here last, Kate, we've had some wrens and some chickadees that have decided, oh, we really like this place. I think we'll come each year and have our babes and then move on and come back again. So right now we have two nests, one that actually is in a basket that these birds found, and they like it. And so each year they come in and they nest in this basket on our patio where we sit and talk and all this. You'd think that wouldn't happen. And then out in the back, further in the backyard, is the little house that we were given by our youngest daughter. It was a birdhouse, and there hadn't been any bird going into that house at all, because it doesn't look like it would be a nest. Well, this year the chickadees have found it, and they are now right at the point of simply going to the door with the food just to feed the guys that we know are in there, but we haven't seen them. And so they should be fledgling anytime now. And so we're excited about that. We told our younger daughter, who has some dogs, and she loves to bring them over when she comes in. Listen, we love your dogs. We know you love your dogs, but we're not going to let them go into the backyard while these birds are trying to reproduce their own. So it's been exciting to watch, and it's a real taste of nature in our own backyard.
That is so awesome. Thank you, Charlie. And I remember your backyard, and you had a couple of really magnificent trees that I was in love with. So thank you for sharing. Anyone else? How has nature been a magnificent book in which God speaks to you?
Charlie, you remind me of when I move from place to place, I try to plant a garden to increase the biodiversity in the locale and build, especially for birds and butterflies. And I just want to share something exciting that happened. Some friends of mine gave me a tree species that is now extinct in the wild, and I highly recommend it to all of you. It's my friends went over to Monticello, which is just an hour from here, and where I live, and the greenhouses over there sell heritage plants. And the tree that they brought back is Franklinia. It's named after Benjamin Franklin. It's Franklinia, and it is exquisite tree. The foliage in the fall is a burgundy, rusty, beautiful color, and the flower is so fragrant and beautiful. It's huge, white, with a yellow center of stamens. So I highly recommend it. I put the Franklinia in. I told my neighbors about it. We now have 2 in the backyard, and then the neighbors across the street, they've planted 2 as well. So the word is spreading. Franklinia, and you can find it. You can find it online. And many greenhouses that are dealing with native plants, they will have it as well. Franklinia, it's spelled just like it sounds.
Thank you.
Yeah, check it out.
Jennifer just flashed a little picture of it from her phone. If you got a chance to see that.
Yeah, it's a beautiful tree.
There it is.
How gorgeous.
It's a beauty. It is a beauty. So check it out. And let me know if you get one and where you got it. Not all nurseries carry it, and they may tell you we can't get that. But check
Bruce,
it out.
What land are you living on? Where do you live?
It's in the city of Stanton.
Oh, okay.
And it's a well-drained hillside behind the house.
Okay.
And it's just we've been planting like crazy back there.
We might be able to handle it up here. I'm in northern Idaho, so I'll just have to look at the latitude lines.
Okay, good. And go online and check out its history. It's an amazing history.
I shall.
I'm on a Franklinia mission. Thank you, Charlie. You started that thought in my head today.
Kate, your question. Will you repeat your question?
I sure will. How has nature been a magnificent book in which God speaks to you?
It saved my life, literally, in the last 3 years. Some of you know I struggled with depression, and really, like, I know who I am and I know who God is, and I can go home anytime. I am not afraid, and I am complete here, only that God said, you're not complete here. So I live in northern Idaho. I'm blessed with the mountains around me and the lakes. And the first time I came up here from Moscow, Idaho to Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, and I put my hands right on Lake Coeur d'Alene, she said, don't you believe what they tell you, Donna, that I'm sick and dying? I'm cleaning myself, but you are welcome. And you are welcome to stay here and pray with me. And so my water ceremony this coming Sunday, we'll be back at the lake helping her clean herself. and just touching her with God's energy that comes through my hands and placing it. And that's that. It's simple, but it's profound. And I heard her. And she speaks to me all the time. She helps me stay alive. That's what God gave back to me to stay on this planet, was the planet.
Donna, I love that message. That's so beautiful.
Very much so. Thank you.
When I was dealing with my brain cancer, a friend sent me this card, and it said, there's the card, and it's a beautiful card, and it says, I'm not going to die. I'm going home like a shooting star. Isn't that lovely?
When the time is right,
yeah.
When the time is right, I will go. But until now, I keep being told the time's not right.
Years ago, I lived as a Franciscan in Steubenville, Ohio. At the time, the Ohio River just down the cliff was caught on fire. It was horrible. Now, the Ohio River is being cleaned up by itself, and people helping too, of course. It's just lovely, the resiliency of nature.
Wouldn't we do well to remember that resiliency of nature?
Yeah, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. I was waiting to see if Catherine wanted to say anything.
Yes, I have always loved St. Francis, and it's interesting that I had the wonderful privilege to work with retired Franciscan brothers for about 6 years, weekly, going to their retirement home and doing massage therapy with them. And actually, one of them gave me this book. And it's like, wow, this is so cool. And Bruce, that's awesome. The Franciscans, I got chills. They are just wonderful, wonderful people. They treasure the earth. And I've always tried to live my life as St. Francis, being an instrument of peace. And our backyard is a sanctuary for birds and butterflies. And we have actually, in the past, grown butterflies and released them. And this year, a neighbor down the street is going to help us work with releasing monarch butterflies. And,
Lovely.
yeah, it's just incredible. Wow, I'm really choked up. Thank you, Kate, for inviting me to this group.
Thanks for being here, Catherine. And it's funny because, well, just so everybody knows, we live in the same community, and she said that she had this book she saw it on my table when she came to see my new puppy, and I said, well, we're having a discussion on it, and so here we are. And so thank you for being here. Jennifer, is there anything that you'd like to say before we move on?
Oh yeah, like 100 things, but I'll try not to say 100. One is just in response to Charlie and the birds. I totally get that, because I happen to live on this property right now where there are violet green swallows who come back, at least 8 of them, with at least 4 nests. Some in the eaves of this cabin that I live in, one in a nest box out there. We also have a lot of juncos who have chosen this property to have babies, and I literally watched them fledge before my eyes. Out of their nest my neighbor had a potting soil bag, and she didn't roll it down. And so they took advantage in the spring and went in, made a nest, had their babies in there, and I got to watch them fledge literally out of a potting soil bag on some metal shelf out in their carport. So that was very cool, like at the moment they fledged. And I have a long time relationship with juncos. Anyway, what I want to say about that, though, this a larger statement, I think, is that it's this, you know, finding the awe and the reverence for me is about what I do, but it's really about how I relate and how I allow the non-human species around me to relate to me. And so I wrote a blog post a year or so ago that I was remembering the other day about this little pear tree, which is not a native plant in this area, but it's very well established. My neighbor had planted it. It bears lots of fruit that the coyotes like to come and toss around like balls in their mouths and munch on a little bit in the autumn or late summer. But it's this exquisite tree, and it called to me when you were talking, Don. I was getting chills because I was thinking about so many experiences where there have been individuals that I can name by species and location in my life over the years who have spoken to me, and me too. I mean, I feel like nature saved my life over and over. And so this pear tree literally called to me over a period of days last year, when we were still very isolated in the earlier COVID time. And it wouldn't have it any other way. She wouldn't have it any other way until I approached, came underneath the canopy, laid my hands on, speaking of the laying on of hands, laid my hands upon her bark in these grooves that a bear had etched, a black bear who had come through the yard. And then a junco, as I mentioned, I'm connected to them, sat on a branch on the opposite side of the tree. And we had this moment, pear tree and the bear and the junco. And so it's that for me that is just the essence of that. I couldn't have predicted that or planned it or thought it with my brain or anything, orchestrated that. It just was a gift in the moment. And so that paying attention and making relationship with the beings around us, for me, is where that really happens.
This conversation leads me to an observation. Going back to St. Francis of Assisi, I'm amazed that in the time that he lived, that he was not martyred, and because of his pantheism, its seeming pantheism. And I'm amazed that the church authorities or society in the day, they didn't take him and do something terrible to him. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
That pantheism, almost like honoring nature as a bunch of gods and goddesses. And Francis survived that. Why did he survive that? His charisma and the absolute connection to creation.
Yeah, I think he survived it because he proclaimed that this was God's gift to us, that it wasn't a denial of God. It wasn't this, sort of pure form of like paganism. It was bringing God into the earth and into the creatures that Creator provided us and asked us to care for. And so yeah, thank you for that. It's a good point. I mean, I thought about that too, like, man, how did he get away with saying some stuff that he did, and even like, even in this, I mean, I can imagine that some Christians are like, having a little bit like, okay, well, yeah, well, he's the Pope, and I have this feeling about it. So, it's interesting. Yeah. I want to go on to this climate as a common good. And I'm going to read from page 20 in this section called 23. The opening sentence says, the climate is a common good belonging to all and meant for all. He goes on to say, humanity is called to recognize the need for changes of lifestyle, production, and consumption in order to combat this warming, or at least the human causes which produce or aggravate it. So he was talking about some global warming issues. It is true that there are other factors such as volcanic activity, variations in the Earth's orbit and axis, the solar cycle, yet a number of scientific studies indicate that most global warming in recent decades is due to the great concentration of greenhouse gases, carbon dioxide, methane, nitrogen oxides, and others, released mainly as a result of human activity. I just love, and I think Bruce mentioned this earlier to us when we were waiting for people to join, that he's like, I love how he brought in, spirituality, religion, philosophy, science, and this is like a big piece of that science piece. And I just watched a movie last night that I just want to mention to you. I don't know who has Prime or not, Amazon, whatever, but there's a movie called Chloe and Theo, and it's an older movie, I think 2015. And it was adorable. And there was one little sad part. I'm gonna be totally upfront. There was a sad part in there, but it was really, and it brought in the environment, and it's a good film to just check out. And then I just want to quickly move to another issue. So it talks about us and what we've been doing that was harmful, but there's a section in the encyclical on the issue of water. So I'm going to just read something from page 25. Even as the quality of available water is constantly diminishing in some places, there is a growing tendency, despite its scarcity, to privatize this resource, turning it into a commodity subject to the laws of the market. Yet access to safe, drinkable water is a basic and universal human right, since it is essential to human survival and as such is a condition for the exercise of other human rights. Mm-hmm. Greater scarcity of water will lead up to an increase in the cost of food and various products which depend on its use. Some studies warn that an acute water shortage may occur within a few decades unless urgent action is taken. And so I just want to bring up like this, this social issue as well. And I think, it's one of the reasons that Heal the Waters got started. I was in a group of, in a circle of women, and one of the women brought up that lake. She lived in Ohio, and how Lake Erie was just crying. And, she just felt the sorrow for the pollution and just the degradation of that particular body of water. And I said, and every single woman in this group was talking about how water had been up for them that particular year. And so that's how Heal the Waters was born. We said, let's start doing ceremony. Let's thank the waters for life. Let's ask, for forgiveness for what we keep on doing, what we've done and what we seem to keep on doing. And then, can we, with our intention, heal the waters. And so that's how it kind of got started. So I know that link is in the chat room. And does anyone want to say anything about those two things?
Before? You remind me of the great Aldo Leopold, the land ethicist, and he said that he reminded us that nature is not a commodity, but a community to which we belong. Isn't that lovely? Good old Aldo Leopold.
Love that guy.
Yeah.
Love that guy.
A Sandemanian almanac.
That's the definition of nature. I got all my words in wrong order. What you said, Bruce, about nature. If we don't know that we are it and that we're separated from it, and I got my thought back. So that separation, right? That's a sin against nature, that missed mark, right? And so when we find that we are absolutely every pulse of nature, and that we're an extension, we're not just an extension of it, we are an exquisite component of it. Mm-hmm. That's when we start this really sacred dance with it. And just the walking around my neighborhood, and just the watching the squirrels, just the communing and being great with my fellow beings on here, that when I talk to the squirrel, I know I'm talking to God's squirrels. right? When I'm cheeseburger, back to the chickadees, right? The chickadees are like, cheeseburger. And they, they make a little cheeseburger sound. And so when I'm out there singing with them, it is just everything in my body alights, like the hair already thinking about it on my arm sticking up. Like I drove home from my client's house yesterday singing to myself, I feel held, I feel held, I feel held. Don't think I've ever felt this held in my entire life. I feel held. And I was singing to the planet and I was singing to God because God was what was holding me. For the first time at 56 years old, I felt held. Like, wow, this is healing my heart. This is healing my cells. It's healing my everything. And as I heal, we all heal. Because Charlie, we're one.
Thank you. Wow. We should have scheduled this for longer. We can stay on as long as everybody wants to. But I am just in the interest of time going to skip over a couple of things, and if we do have time, I'd like to go back to them. But I'm going to just jump to page 49, and I'm going to talk. This particular section was about man and other beings, and I'm going to read from section number 68. This responsibility for God's earth means that human beings endowed with intelligence must respect the laws of nature and the delicate equilibria existing between the creatures of this world. For he commanded, and they were created, and he established them forever and ever. He fixed their bounds, and he set a law which cannot pass away. The laws found in the Bible dwell on relationships, not only among individuals, but with other living beings. And then the following page, together with our obligation to use the earth's goods responsibly, we are called to recognize that other living beings have a value of their own in God's eyes. By their mere existence, they bless him and give him glory. And indeed, quote, the Lord rejoices in all of his works, end quote. That's from Psalm. By virtue of our unique dignity and our gift of intelligence, we are called to respect creation and its inherent laws. For, quote, the Lord by wisdom founded the earth, end quote. That's from Proverbs. In our time, the church does not simply state that other creatures are completely subordinated to the good of human beings, as if they have no worth in themselves, and can be treated as we wish. And then finally on page 51, although in Genesis it says the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and the Lord was sorry that he had made man on the earth, nonetheless, through Noah, who remained innocent and just, God decided to open a path of salvation. In this way, he gave humanity the chance of a new beginning. All it takes is one good person to restore hope. I'm going to say that again. All it takes is one good person to restore hope. Well, the world is much bigger now, and we need to create a critical mass. Our Noah. And let's talk about this. How are we going to potentially create critical mass? Jennifer?
I'm so thrilled to hear the word hope come into this, because as I mentioned in the chat about holding despair and awe, I think hope has a real role here. And I think, again, it's an active thing. It's not just a wishful thinking thing. Early in COVID, like while we were in our first shelter in place order here in the state of Washington, I don't listen to a lot of podcasts, but I happened to listen to an interview through Emergence Magazine, where David Quammen, who is a nature writer, science writer, who Bruce and I are familiar with, at least from grad school, if for Bruce, maybe even before that. And he, at the very end of a difficult interview, talking about a book that Quammen had written circa 2013 that basically was about COVID before COVID was or was known. The interviewer asked him a question about the role of hope. And David was so honest. He said, you know, I don't wake up every day like hopeful. That's not my MO. And I so related to that. He said, but hope is a responsibility and it's an act of will. And I have clung to that fiercely in the last couple of years, partly because in my professional work, I do have to hold hope, not in a false way, but I have, when people come to me and they're hurting, that's part of helping and supporting their process is to be the hope source, if even temporarily. But then, of course, that means we all need to take time and restore our own well of hope in order to act in the world. So I could go on and on. I won't in the interest of time, but I'm just so excited that you read that portion, Kate. Thank you.
Kate, I'm excited about it as well. You and I see the same kinds of things. I had the whole thing underlined, and I'm giggling a little bit right now. The paragraph that says, although the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and the Lord was sorry that he made man on the earth. Did he say, oops? Did God say, oops? How will you fix this? Too late. I love it. I think God has a great sense of humor. Whoever she is or he is, great sense of humor. That's one of the attributes of God.
Okay, let's drag Donna's face through the mud and see how she does with that. And then let's bring her out and show her the sunshine in 3 years and like see if she makes it out of that. And I'm like, oh, that's cute. That's super cute.
Yeah.
Are you sure I needed that? Clearly I did.
Charlie, it looks like you're eager to say something. Am I reading you wrong? Or
are you talking to me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just sent, actually I was communicating with Donna, and my last comment was really meant for everyone based on what Jennifer was talking about, and that I just referred that scripture says, and I obviously am paraphrasing, that we should we should be joyful if one can be, but we should be joyful or thankful for our suffering, because suffering produces character, and character produces hope, and hope does not fail us. The scripture is more detailed than that, but I couldn't help but think it ties most of what we've been talking about today, about trauma to self, trauma to the earth, the collective trauma, the individual trauma, and how we look at that trauma, how we look at that suffering. And if we make it through, it does produce strong character, strong courage, and that leads to hope for the future, hope that we can return home from where we came. And so so that certainly gives me hope and gives me motivation and energy to continue with the Charter for Compassion and the work that we're all in to realize, what we've been talking about. So thank you.
Thank you. I want to read this one. Jen, did you have something, Jen? No, I want to read this one quote. I'm backtracking a little bit because it reminded when Charlie talked about these three things, and I can't remember exactly what they were. One of the quotes was a three-pronged also thing. So this is in this section number 66 on page 47. The creation accounts in the book of Genesis contain in their own symbolic and narrative language profound teaching about human existence and its historical reality. This is the part. They suggest that human life is grounded in three fundamental and closely intertwined relationships: with God, with our neighbor, and with the earth itself. According to the Bible, these three vital relationships have been broken, both outwardly and within us. The harmony between the Creator, humanity, and creation as a whole was disrupted by our presuming to take the place of God and refusing to acknowledge our creaturely limitations. We were told to till it and keep it. And tilling refers to cultivating, plowing, or working, while keeping means caring, protecting, overseeing, and persevering. This implies a relationship of mutual responsibility between human beings and nature. And so I want to leave that with us as we conclude, because we also at the very beginning had some places where you can have compassionate action for our environment, the Compassion Tree Project, Heal the Waters, obviously follow those things on Facebook. And there's so much more that the Charter for Compassion is doing that we'd like to hook you into. And I am so grateful for everyone's contribution to this discussion. I welcome you to stay on if you'd like to talk further, but we'll stop the recording shortly after the conclusion of this, which will be a reading from the Laudato Si, and it's a prayer for our earth. But before I read that, I just want to see if there's anything that anyone feels they need to say before we close out with regard to our discussion to this point. Are we okay? All right. So this is called A Prayer for Our Earth, and it's on page 158. All-powerful God, you are present in the whole universe and in the smallest of your creatures. You embrace with your tenderness all that exists. Pour out upon us the power of your love, that we may protect life and beauty. Fill us with peace, that we may live as brothers and sisters, harming no one. O God of the poor, help us to rescue the abandoned and forgotten of this earth, so precious in your eyes. Bring healing to our lives, that we may protect the world and not prey on it, that we may sow beauty, not pollution and destruction. Touch the hearts of those who look only for gain at the expense of the poor and the earth. Teach us to discover the worth of each thing, to be filled with awe and contemplation, to recognize that we are profoundly united with every creature as we journey towards your infinite light. We thank you for being with us each day. Encourage us, we pray, in our struggle for justice, love, and peace.
Thank you, Kate. And I just really feel like I belonged with this little circle of trust today. Thank you.
You certainly did. Thank you, everyone, for being here. May your day, evening, afternoon be blessed. And please join us in our efforts to anything that you can do in your circle of influence to share this message would be appreciated by I know our circle here, the bigger circle, and certainly the planet. Have a wonderful day and much gratitude.
Thanks, everybody.
Bless us.